Question 8a, here we've got a partial fractions question, so 2x squared plus 5x minus 10 over x minus 1 x plus 2. It needs to be written in the form a plus b over x minus 1 plus c over x minus x plus 2 rather. Now the first thing we might want to do to get the a and to set us off really is division, because you've got a quadratic over a quadratic, so it's the same order. So before we can get into partial fractions technique, we do a long division process. And so we are dividing 2x squared plus 5x minus 10 by x minus 1 x plus 2. Well, let's just quickly expand that. So x squared minus x plus 2x is plus x minus 2. Okay, so how many of those go into 2x squared plus 5x minus 10? Okay, so initially then, how many x squareds go into 2x squared? Well, 2. And that then generates 2x squared plus 2x minus 4. Okay, then we're ready to do the subtraction. 2x squareds cancel. 5x minus 2x is 3x. Minus 10 minus minus 4, so plus 4, minus 10 plus 4, minus 6. Okay, so that's our remainder, because how many x squareds go into 3x? Well, that's like saying how many 10s go into 2. You've got a bigger order going into a smaller order, so that's where you stop. This is your remainder. Okay, so as a first sort of stage for this, then what we have is 2 remainder 3x plus 3x minus 6. That remainder, of course, can then go in the numerator of a fraction. Just as if you said 11 divided by 10, you have, well, sorry, by example, 12 divided by 10. 12 divided by 10 is 1 remainder 2, or really it's 1 and 2/10. Okay, so you put your remainder back on top of the divisor. Okay, so then 3x minus 6 over x minus 1 x plus 2, that's now what we wanting to really split into partial fractions. Let's just bring that to the side. Let's use the letters we had earlier actually, so B, sorry there, just to avoid confusion with the question format. So b over x minus 1 plus c over x plus 2. Okay, remember the technique here then. We're going to multiply through by the whole denominator. Okay, that's going to get rid of the whole denominator on the left, leaving just 3x minus 6. And then on the right, we've got b times by the x plus 2, because the x minus 1s would cancel. If you're multiplying this by the x minus 1, it would cancel. You're also multiplying by x plus 2 though, so that appears. For c, the x plus 2 would cancel, but the x minus 1 would appear. Okay. Now, let's choose some values that are going to knock out some of these coefficients. So if we choose x equals minus 2, that will knock out the first term there. So let x equal minus 2. Then that's going to give us 3 times minus 2, take away 6. That whole term is going to disappear, because minus 2 plus 2 is 0, so that's going to disappear. So that's going to be the c bracket minus 2 minus 1, which is minus 3. Okay, tidy that up a bit then. So minus 6 is minus 12, equals minus 3c, and therefore c is 4. Okay, going back to here again, do the same sort of thing, but this time using x equals 1 to knock out this second term. So x equals 1, 3 times 1 minus 6. Putting the x equals 1 into there. X equals 1 into here gives us 3b. And x equals 1 into here cancels that out, so we leave that. Okay, tidy that up a bit. 3 minus 6 is minus 3. Minus 3 equals 3b. B equals minus 1. Okay, so putting all of that together then, going right back to the start, 2x squared plus 5x minus 10 all over x minus 1 x plus 2 that's going to be our quotient of 2, and then plus the partial fractions where b is minus 1, and we just double check we had b over x minus 1, and b itself is minus 1, so let's change that to minus 1 over x minus 1. C we had as 4, and that was over x plus 2 there. Okay, and that's our finished. There is our finished version. Okay, 8 part B. And this question is a binomial expansion question. So we're being asked to expand this in ascending powers of x as far as the x squared term. This from part A we've just established is the same as 2 minus 1 over x minus 1 plus 4 over x plus 2. And now that can be then rewritten as 2 minus x minus 1 to the power minus 1 there, and then 4 x plus 2 to the power minus 1 there. Okay. Now this then writes it in a format that's a bit more familiar when we come to the binomial expansion, but still, nonetheless, because we've got negative powers, we're dealing with the year 2 version of the binomial expansion, and in the year 2 version of the binomial expansion, excuse me, we need inside the bracket to be the form 1 plus something. 1 plus something like x. Okay, so what we're going to have to do is make sure we get that. So to get a positive 1 here, we're going to have to take out a factor of minus 1. So that's going to be minus 1. That's then going to make this positive 1 minus x. Okay, and all of that goes to the power of negative 1 there. Okay, so minus 1 times 1 minus x is the same as x minus 1. Then to the power of minus 1 there. And then just to quickly push that bit through, and then I'll come on to the next one. That minus 1 then applies to this and to this separately, so many of you will have just gone straight from there to there. Similar thing here then. So we've already got a 4. This needs to be a 1, so we're going to take out a factor of 2. That makes that a 1 there. This then would have to be x over 2, so that then when x over 2 is multiplied by 2, we get back to x, which is where we started. 2 times 1 is 2, which is where we started. Okay, so that those two brackets multiplied together gets us x plus 2, which is where we started. And that there, all of that bit was the original bracket, so that's raised to the power minus 1, but not the 4. Okay, so then taking this 2 to the minus 1 out of the bracket, then we've got 4 then times 2 to the minus 1 times by this 1 plus x over 2 to the minus 1. Okay, now let's just tidy this up a little bit. So minus 1 to the power of minus 1. So that's 1 over negative 1. Two to the power of minus 1 is a half, 1 over 2. Tidy the coefficients up a bit. Minus 1 over minus 1, that's plus 1, which is just plus this bracket as it stands. 4 times a half is 2. Okay, and now we're ready to do the binomial expansion bit itself. So, okay, so open bracket then. We have 1 plus nx, so where n is negative 1 and the x in inverted commas is that negative x there. So checking against the formula booklet at this stage. If you don't have it in front of you, get the formula booklet in front of you for this stage. Okay, plus 2 lots of, sorry, next step there is then n minus 1, which is n minus 2, all over 2, and minus x squared Okay, and we could go further. We could go to the x cubed term, but according to the question, we only need to go as far as x squared. So we're gonna stop that there. We could go further. We don't need to. Okay, then moving on to this term here. So that's 2, then open bracket. Again, binomial expansion on 1 plus x over 2 is by negative 1. So that's 1 plus nx, so n being negative 1. X in this case being, or x in inverted commas, really being x over 2. Then plus n minus 1 over 2 of x squared, but x in this case is x over 2. Plus dot dot dot. We could go to cubes and to the power of 4, etc., but we don't need it for the question. Okay, now it's just a tidying up job. So 2 plus, now since there's a lot of positive terms there, we'll just drop that bracket straight away. So it's a 1, minus 1 times minus x is plus x. Minus 1 times minus 2 is positive 2, divided by 2 is just 1. So that's just 1. Negative x squared, well, that's going to be positive x squared, so that's just x squared. Okay, and then cubic terms, then we're on to this bit. So plus 2, open bracket, 1, that's minus 1 times x over 2, so that's minus x over 2. Or maybe write that actually as minus a half x. Here we've got minus 1 times minus 2 over 2, so that's 2 over 2 is 1, so that effectively just disappears really. Here we're going to x squared over 4 when you square that, so let's write that as 1/4 x squared. Okay. So let's expand the brackets quickly. So 2 minus, so 2 times a half is 1, so minus x. 2 times a quarter is a half. And then finally, what have we got? 2 plus 1 plus 2 is 5. X minus x, cancel. X squared plus a half x squared, that's going to be plus 3 over 2 x squared. Okay, and there we go.